Dee, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, welcome. If you visited my channel before, welcome back. Today, in honor of what will be Mother's Day here in the US, because I recently found out that I have international viewers also, but here in the US, this weekend we will celebrate Mother's Day. Now, my mom is no longer with me. I like to say that she is part of my great cloud of witnesses. But in honor of my mom and Mother's Day this weekend, I would like to bake, and I'm going to use my cheat sheet because this is a long title, a sour cream coffee cake with cinnamon streusel. I baked this cake, not this particular recipe, but I baked my mom a cinnamon streusel coffee cake, which doesn't have coffee in it. But anyway, I baked a coffee cake for my mom many years ago, and she loved it. My niece and my great nephew recently visited me, and she reminded me of when I baked that cake for my mom and how she didn't want to try it because she thought it had coffee in it or whatever. And she tried it and she thought it was delicious. So, in honor of my mom, I'm going to bake a coffee cake for you today. Now, I do love coffee, hence my little apron that says, "But first, coffee." So, if you've watched any of my videos before, you're probably saying, "Mrs. D, why do you have all of your ingredients out on the counter like that and not in cute little white bowls?" Because I love using gadgets. Today, I'm going to use one of my favorite gadgets, and I'm going to bring you guys along. I am going to use my handy dandy scale. Using this scale helps you to save time, and it cuts down on the amount of dishes that you have to wash when baking. I'm also going to use my stand mixer. I'm going to use these measuring spoons. I'm going to use the sifter in order to sift our flour, and one additional bowl. That's it. And we're going to get this coffee cake made. So follow along as we prepare a coffee cake today in honor of Mother's Day. And I am also going to tell you a little bit about my mom. If you have not watched my happy birthday daddy video, make sure you go back and watch that one so you can learn a little bit about my dad. But today it's all about my mom. My mom, and then I don't have my mom, but I have two mother-in-laws, y'all. Two. Got a mother-in-law, Jackie, and I got a mother-in-law, Miss Lily. So happy Mother's Day to you guys. So if you're interested in learning how to make this coffee cake that doesn't have any coffee in it, continue to watch. All of the measurements and ingredients for this cake will be listed in the description box. The description box is listed right below the title of this video. You'll see the word more. If you'll click where it says more, it will then show you all of the ingredients and all of the instructions for this cake. Actually, I'm going to list a link. You're not going to see the directions, but if you click that link where it says more, it'll give you all the information that you need to make this streusel cake. So I've already turned on my scale. I'm going to add my bowl to the scale. And I don't know if you can see that, but did you see the numbers change? Then I'm going to zero out my scale. I'm measuring in grams today. The only thing that I'll be measuring in ounces is going to be my sour cream. So according to our instructions, we're going to need 114 grams of chopped pecan. So let's go ahead and add that to the bowl and watch the numbers change. And the thing about this using a scale is if I use too much, I can take some out, but when you're using a measuring cup, you kind of don't know if you've got the correct measurements. But you see that says 142 grams. I'm going to take some of that out because I only need 114 grams. So let's take a little bit of that out. And scales can be pretty finicky, so make sure that there's nothing touching your scale or you may get inaccurate reading. So that's 113.7. Let's add one more pecan. 114.5. That's fine. All right. And then we are going to add our flour. We need 1 cup of flour. 1 cup of flour is equal to 120 grams. So let's go ahead on and add our flour, keeping our eye. Oh, first thing we need to do is zero out our scale. Now, keep your eye on your scale as you add your flour. You need like I said, you need 120 grams. So keep your eye on it so that you won't go over. And you see those numbers changing and increasing? It's 108, 121.1. So if I wanted to be precise, look, I can take a little bit out. That's 119.3. There you go, 120. And then I'm going to zero out my scale again. That's the way my sister says that word. I say again, but my big sister, she says again. So I'll zero out my scale, and then we are going to add our cinnamon and salt. And that's where our measuring spoons come in. So we don't necessarily need the scale for this part, but we're going to need our measuring spoons. So we need 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I like using the organic cinnamon. I get this from Walmart. So we need 2 teaspoons of that. Measure that out. 1 and 2. And we're going to need a half a teaspoon of salt. Today I am using this Morton's fine sea salt. So you need a teaspoon of that. And I'm not going to measure that over my bowl just in case I go over. Because remember, we're using, oh no, I didn't tell you this, but we're using salted butter today. This recipe called for salted butter. That's why I'm shocked that we're adding additional salt. But there's our half a teaspoon of salt. And we need a half a cup or a stick of salted butter cut into cubes. All right. And what our recipe calls for is us to use our phalanges or our fingers in order to make this into a crumble. So I don't need my scale anymore. We'll sit that to the side. And I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about my mother as I mix this together. And it's going to get a little messy, guys. So my mother is the 5th daughter of my grandparents. My grandparents had a total of 7 children. I believe they had 2 that didn't make it past 2 years old. My aunt had a twin sister, and then I think there was an additional child that my grandparents had that didn't make it. But my mom was the baby girl. Baby girl. Funny thing, guys. So back when my mom was born, a midwife would come to the house and, or to the hospital and help the mom to deliver babies. I believe my grandmother had my mother at home. But my mother did not find out that her name was not her name until she got ready to apply for her birth certificate when she was marrying my dad. My mom's whole life, she thought her name was Gloria Dean, but it was not. And she found that out when she got ready to marry my dad. Yep, but then she kept the nickname. Everybody still called her Dean, but that wasn't her actual real name. Yep. So I'm just gonna crumble this together. Oop, I lost a pecan. This is really sticky and messy. You want to take your time and make sure that your butter is all incorporated because you are going to use this streusel twice. So now that that's all mixed together, we will set this to the side and get started on our cake batter. To prepare our batter, we're going to use our stand mixer. We are going to use the paddle attachment today, and we are going to cream together our butter and our sugars. Then we're going to add our eggs one at a time and our vanilla extract. So let's go ahead and add our butter to the bowl. And today we're using salted butter, guys. I don't know if I said that. We're using salted butter. Now, I need to get all of this delicious butter off of this paper. So I am going to use a scraper. Another interesting fact about my mother worked in several different areas. My mom did not have a college degree. She went to college. She started at Southern University, but she didn't finish. She had 4 beautiful children, so she didn't get a chance to finish. My father also went to Southern University, and so did I. Go Jaguars. But my mom didn't finish, but my mom had several interesting jobs. When I was younger, my mom worked in community advancement. My mom worked as a dental assistant, and her final position, which she loved more than anything, my mom was a self-taught dietitian. Now, my second sister, she got all of her cooking skills and recipes from my mom. I did not. because I don't like to cook. I've never liked to cook. I don't know why. But my sister got her love of cooking, and my sister is an excellent chef from my mom. My mother, I don't remember my mom following recipes. I remember my mom cooking delicious meals from her head. I was just, I don't know, I just was not interested in being in the kitchen when I was young. But my second sister, she's got all the recipes. And if you watch my very first video that I produced, which was biscuits 3 ways. In that video, I challenged you all to get recipes from your family because once they're gone, so are the recipes. So I want to continue to encourage you to get your mom's recipes and write them down. We have such great technology today. Videotape her, video her telling you about the recipe so that you'll have that to pass along to your kids and your grandkids. And speaking of grandkids, guys, my grandbaby helped me on a video coming up. It's it's like one long blooper reel. So you guys are gonna meet my grandbaby soon. So let's go ahead and prepare this cake. So I've already added the butter to this bowl. Now we need to add our granulated sugar. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to use my scale. I've already zeroed my scale out, if you could see that. I'm gonna add my batter bowl, which weighs 3,480 grams. But I'm going to zero that out, and I am going to add my the rest of the ingredients to our mixing bowl. We need 198 grams of granulated sugar, and watch how easy this is to measure. So make sure my scale says 0. Make sure there's nothing touching it so that I can get the accurate reading. We're just going to dump that sugar in. Keep our eyes on the scale because we don't want to add too much. So we need 198 grams. So that's 110. Keep going. 120, 40, 60. Up. Now I put a little bit too much and watch how easy that is to take a little bit out because I measured 206. Watch this. Use my measuring spoon and just take a little bit out. Make sure I'm not touching my little butter. Now that says 197.8. Let's add a couple of granules so we can get it right on. Look at that. 198. Excellent. And we're also going to need 106 grams, 0.5 of brown sugar. And like I said, guys, all the measurements for this recipe will be listed in the description box. So again, we're going to zero out our scale because now we're doing another measurement. And we're going to need 106 grams. Keep your eye on the scale because you don't want to add too much. $113, $109. Because some cake recipes, guys, are very precise. Sometimes if it calls for packed brown sugar, sometimes you may not pack it just right. And you may not be using enough brown sugar. Or sometimes you can use too much flour because you're using a measuring cup. So I like using the scale because the scale is so precise. So let's go ahead and cream this together. And I have learned since doing these videos, do not talk while the mixer is running because you cannot hear me. So let's get this cream together. We're going to cream this butter sugar together for approximately, the recipe says 4 minutes, but just until it's fluffy. This is a very important part of your recipe because if you don't cream it together long enough, then it could affect the texture of your cake. So let's put this on medium speed and let's get our butter and sugar cream together. times, our 4 minutes, and it's nice and fluffy. Now we are going to add our eggs one at a time. Guys, I'm old school. I don't trust eggs. I had to leave these eggs out on the counter in order for them to reach room temperature. But I want to make sure that I don't have a bad egg in the bunch. You never know. You never know. So I am going to crack these eggs one at a time in a bowl first, in a separate bowl, and then add them to my mixture. I'm not going to add the additional egg until the egg that I currently add has mixed in completely. All of our eggs have been incorporated. I'm going to scrape down the side of this bowl to make sure that all of that sugar and butter mixture is mixed into the eggs. So I'm going to turn the mixer on one more time just to make sure that all of the egg mixture has been combined, because next we're going to add our flour, and we don't want to have any, chunks of our butter mixture not well incorporated. Another interesting fact about my mother, I live here in Louisiana. I guess I probably never told you guys that. So I live in Louisiana, and a hot commodity here in Louisiana are crawfish. I can remember when I was a little girl, my mom would go to the to Tony Seafood. I'm really telling where I live now. And she would get a sack of crawfish, bring them home. She would purge them. Now they're saying that that's not necessary, that you purge the crawfish. Purging crawfish is when you add the crawfish to a big bucket of water or whatever, and you dump loads of salt on them. But now they're saying that's not necessary, that you just rinse the crawfish. But I remember my mom preparing crawfish for us and just letting us just have our way. And she, oh my goodness, her crawfish were so good. Her crawfish were so good, we would sweat. We would sweat and our nose would just run because the crawfish were so spicy and so good. So let's go ahead and mix this butter and these eggs together before we add our sour cream and our vanilla. Okay, yeah, that's well combined. Now, I'm going to take my bowl off of this platform because I am going to mix in my additional ingredients, and we need to measure out our sour cream. we're gonna need approximately, I think our recipe calls for 10 ounces of sour cream. So I'm going to change the measurements on my scale from grams to ounces. Now, this fancy scale that I have, I got this scale when my husband, we were at Costco one day and he wanted this fancy blender. And it came with this free, well, it's not free, but it came with this scale. And so that's how I got my scale. It's a Vitamix scale. But I've seen scales on in stores for and on Amazon for like under $20. A good place to get a scale right now on sale would be any store that's going out of business, because there are several stores in my area right now that's going out of business, and I'm sure in your area too. Bed Bath and Beyond is one of them. So although they're not accepting coupons, when that percentage goes down to 50%, go in there and get you a scale. So we're going to add our sour cream and our vanilla. And see, that's mixed together real well. So we will turn on our scale. Got to do that first. 3, 2, 1. There we go. And I will place my bowl on top of my scale. I will press 0 to zero my scale out. Not sure if you could see that. Let's see. To zero my scale out, make sure that there's nothing touching my scale that would affect the measurements. And then we're going to go ahead and add our sour cream. And remember, I said we needed to change the units. So I changed that to ounces. And we need 10 ounces of room temperature sour cream. And so that we're not using a lot of dishes here, I am just going to use my measuring spoon in order to add this. And this sour cream is room temperature. Oh, wait a minute. Seven, 8, 9, almost there. Almost there. Almost at 10 ounces. $10 ounces. There we go. 10 ounces. Excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, and then we need to, I'm going to go ahead and add this mixer back to, add the bowl back to the stand, because the next ingredient that we need to add is our vanilla, and we don't need the scale for that. Oh, it's connected. All right, make sure it's lowered so we can add our paddle. And we need 2 teaspoons of vanilla, my favorite vanilla. My girlfriend Jessica said, "You're not going to get sponsored, honey, if you don't start calling out these names of these ingredients that you use." So this is my favorite vanilla. And we need 2 teaspoons of this. All right. 1 and 2. All right, we will go ahead and start our mixer and get that mixed together. Then we are going to add our dry ingredients. the instructions say in a separate bowl. So we are going to need one more bowl, guys. Yeah, one more bowl, one more bowl. Got it. So in our one more bowl, we are going to add our dry ingredients, and then we're going to slowly add that to our wet mixture. But still, I'm going to use my scale, and I'm not using 15 other little saucers. We're going to zero out the scale, and we're going to measure our flour in grams. So instead of ounces, I'll change the unit to make sure I add grams and add the remainder of our ingredients. Okay, so we need 2.5 cups or 300 grams of flour. And my little scale will light up probably when I start adding the flour to my bowl, so you can see it. All right, we've got our flour measured, and now we'll need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm using baking powder and baking soda in this particular recipe today. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder, making sure that it's a leveled teaspoon, not a heaping. And we will need a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Making sure that it's one full level. Baking soda, and then we will need 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Guys, you know what? I just made a mistake. Can you see me? This recipe said to sift. So I gotta sift all these ingredients. Let's do that again. This is why it's very important that you read the recipe first. It's important that you read your recipe ahead of time so that you don't make mistakes. But it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Nobody's perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. I just like to bake. And I need you to know that if you make a mistake, you can correct yourself. So let's sift these ingredients together. All right? Because I did tell you in the beginning that we were going to need that sifter. Glad I got a dishwasher. All right, sift that flour together. Sift this flour in the bowl. Look how easy that is. There we go. Another interesting fact about my mother. Guys, my mom never left home without makeup. Never. Never, ever, ever. Rarely ever did my mom leave home without makeup. That's a kosher salt. See how thick it is? Rarely did my mom leave home with makeup. She would say, I know you're not leaving out the house with your face bare. I think she got that from her mom, because my grandmother also would not leave out of the house without having on what she would call her face powder. Yes, yes, yes. So let's go ahead and gradually add our flour mixture to our bowl. We're going to gradually add our flour mixture to our mixing bowl. I'm going to put it on low because remember, we don't want too much gluten. And let's scrape down the sides of our bowl because we want to make sure that all of our flour is incorporated. Scraping down the sides of the bowl, guys, when you're making a cake is very important because sometimes some of your mixture could stay at the bottom of your bowl and never get mixed in. So it's important that you scrape down the sides and do a final scraping of the bottom of the bowl once you take your bowl off of your mixer stand. And if you're using a hand mixer, same thing. You want to make sure that all of your ingredients have mixed in properly. So you want to do that final mix with your hand. All right, let's raise our bowl. Kind of difficult doing it from this angle. Final mix. Okay, that looks perfect. Now we are going to add half of our streusel to the bottom of our bundt pan. Then we're going to add cake mix. Then we're going to add streusel and then cake mix. I think that's the way the recipe goes. Remember, I forgot to read the whole thing, but anyway, one. And we've got our streusel that we set aside earlier. And we are going to add the streusel to our prepared bundt pan. And when I say prepared, what I mean is I've already sprayed it with a non-stick baking spray. So we're going to add half of the streusel, then we're going to add our cake mix, and then we're going to add streusel and then cake mix. Okay, that's about half because we got to save some for the next layer. So I'll let you see what I did there. See, that's about half. It's about half of the streusel mixture. Streusel, that must be a German word. I don't think that's an American word. So we will add half of that, and then I'll go ahead and add half of my cake batter. Still got some cake mix on there. We can't let that go to waste. No, 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 no. Not with this expensive butter that I've been using. Yeah, if you watched one of my videos before, I was using what I thought was quality butter from another company and looked on the ingredients and they were like, other natural flavors. What are they? And if you watch YouTube and Facebook and things like that or do any type of research, because I do like to do a little research when I'm baking. They were talking about forever chemicals and just things that we never had to worry about before in our food. And I don't understand why in other countries they don't use all the chemicals that we use here in America. But I digress. And let's do one final scrape down and one final mix. Oh yeah, look at all that flour at the bottom. Probably because this particular mixer that I'm using, this is the industrial size KitchenAid mixer. It's not your average. I think the average size of a KitchenAid mixer bowl, I think it's like a 4-cup, I believe. I'll have to see, but this is like if you were doubling a recipe. All right, now I don't want to mix it too much. Don't want to add too much gluten. So now we're going to go ahead and add half of our cake batter. And I've already preheated my oven to 350 degrees. And I'm using my oven thermometer. Actually, it just stays in my oven because I like to make sure that my oven is at the correct temperature. I don't want to do all this baking and my oven is not at the correct temperature and my cake, it won't get done. So let's lift this heavy bowl and get half of this mixture into the bowl, into the bun pan. Yeah, I think that's about half. I'm going to use this spatula to just move some of the mixture around. Another story about my mom. My mom was very pivotal in my Christian journey. I remember when I was in high school, I got introduced to Christianity. My grandmother had taken me to church all my life, but nobody had ever presented the gospel of Jesus Christ. And what I mean by that is I'd gone to church and, I'd gotten baptized, but I guess I really wasn't listening. So when I was in high school, our high school gym teacher invited some evangelists to our PE class. I know in your city, it would probably be legal to do that today. But anyway, they invited some evangelists to our PE class and they came and they presented the gospel and I accepted Jesus and started my Christian journey. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm adding the second half of our streusel. So I started my Christian journey. Y'all, I was radical. Oh my gosh, I was radical. And what I mean by that is you can be radical in anything. You can be radical, you can be a radical drinker. You can just drink, 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 drink. I was a radical Christian. Oh my gosh. I read the word and I took it for face value. And I started down this path that was not a very healthy Christian journey. I started to look at my mother's life and expect more out of her because my mom was a Christian was a Christian. And, that's what I'd grown up with, knowing that she was a Christian. But I started to look at her lifestyle. My mom, when I, around about the time I became a Christian, my mom suffered with, and I know this may be personal information. I hope my sisters don't mind, but my mom suffered with depression. And at the time, she was going through menopause. So that was just a whole lot for me to digest, being in high school on my way to college. And so I was going to this particular church and they were teaching us about, the do's and don'ts of Christianity. And if you're a Christian, you're not supposed to do this, not supposed to do that. So I started to look at my mom's life and I started to judge her, which is not a good thing to do. So I started to judge my mom's life. And so our relationship became strained because I had put all these expectations on my mom according to the things that I was learning in the church. And so our relationship became strained. And so shortly after graduating high school, uh, entering college, I moved in with a couple of relatives. That didn't work out. And then I got my own apartment and I continued, to go to church and learn the word. And I was going to this particular church. It was a young church. And like I said, they were, teaching about, living holy. And I had never, heard, I probably heard it, but I wasn't listening. Um, I had never paid attention to the gospel preached that way. So, like I said, our relationship became strained. And my mom sat down one day and penned a letter to me and told me about myself. Yes, she did. She told me that I was judgmental, that I was selfish, and she told me some other things about myself it was a hard pill to swallow. She said, basically that I had no right to judge her life, and she was right. She was 100% right. I had no reason. No, I had no right to do that. You know, she'd been on this earth longer than I had been, and she had known the Lord longer than I had known the Lord. And just because someone goes through a life struggle or some difficulties that doesn't mean that they don't love the Lord. So my mom penned that letter to me, and oh, it crushed me. It crushed me not because she wrote it. It crushed me because she was right. My mom was right. And it took her not speaking to me for quite some time. She literally stopped communicating with me. And during that season when my mom stopped communicating with me, I continued to go to church. And the more I learned about the word, the more conviction set in, and the more I knew that what I had done to my mother, because one of the main things that you learn in Christianity is to honor your father and mother. And I wasn't very honoring at the time. So some time had gone by, and God had just dealt with me. And the more I learned the word, the more I learned that the way that I was treating my mother was wrong. So I went to my mother and I repented. And the Lord told me to accept my mother for who she was, period. No judgment, to accept her for who she was. And y'all, when I did that, oh, the relationship that my mother and I was able to forge. I saw my mom in a different light, in a different light. And from that day forward, our relationship, we were inseparable. I thought I loved my mother before as a teen, and as a young girl growing up, but the relationship that we were able to forge after I had my revelation, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I am going to shake this to make sure that all the air bubbles are out, because we want our streusel to set in our cake, and we don't want any air bubbles. All right, so there we go. We are going to place this in an oven. Our oven is set to 350, and we're going to bake this. I'm going to use my cheat sheet, guys, because I don't remember. 1 second. We're going to bake this at 50 to 60 minutes. So yeah, let's get this in the oven. Stop dancing, Dion. It's not taste test time. Okay. Now it's time to clean up this mess. Okay, guys, it's been 55 minutes. Our recipe says 60 minutes, but I'm going to test it to see if the cake is done, and I'm going to use my cake tester. If you've watched my channel before, I've told you about this cake tester. Can't tell if you can really see it or not, but it's going to register done if the cake is done. All right, I'm just going to insert it into our cake. Ooh, it's nice and golden brown. I'm going to insert the cake tester, and let's see if we are done. I know if you use a toothpick, you can insert it and take it out and you'd be done with this. But I like my little cake tester. And it looks like, yep, it's registering that it's done. All right. We will turn off our oven. And we are going to place our cake on this wire rack. And this cake needs to completely cool before you add any type of glaze or frosting to it. We're gonna do a glaze. Okay. All right. Move this out of the way. Bring our cake on over so you can see. Look at that. Nice and golden brown. Look at that. And our cake tester says that it's done, of course. So like I said, I'm going to place it on this wire rack to cool in the pan for 15 minutes. Then I'm going to invert it, and I'm going to let this cool for 2 hours. I am not going to sit here around the house and wait. I have things to do. So I will be back in about 3 hours. My hair, outfit, all of that may have changed because I'm going on a quick date with my husband. But stick around so that we can glaze this cake. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. So let's invert our cake onto my new cake plate that I got on sale. at Bed Bath and Beyond because they're going out of business. But anyway, I love it. You like that color? So I'm gonna need oven mitts because this is still hot. Guys, in the 15 minutes that I was letting this cake cool, I realized some things. I was feeling a little stressed about telling my story about my mom because I have to realize I have to be very careful. My sisters are going to be hearing, going to be watching this video, and there may be parts of my story that they don't know. But then a song from John P. Key came in my mind. You don't know my story. Look it up. It's on YouTube. But so you have to be careful if you're another YouTuber out there and you're telling stories about your parents. You have to be careful because if you have siblings and they may not want parts of their life or parts of your parents' life shared. So you have to be careful in that aspect. So I've got my oven mitts on, and let's go ahead and invert this cake. Is it gonna stick? Is it gonna stick? Is it gonna stick? And there's that thud. Da, 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 da. Oh, look, I can see the streusel. I can see the streusel. Guys, I can see the streusel. I'm gonna try to bring it close as I can. You see the streusel? So our recipe says to let this cool for 2 hours. So I'm going to let this cool for 2 hours. I know in the past that I have been known to cut hot cakes and have to blow them, but I'm going to follow the directions today. Like I said in my previous clip, I have things to do. So we're going to let this cool for 2 hours and we'll come back. We will make our glaze with our powdered sugar, milk, and our vanilla. We're going to top this cake with our glaze, and then you know what's coming next. I'm not going to dance. I'm going to hold my dance. I'm going to hold my dance until we come back. How about that? How about that? So I'll see you in 2 hours. But for you, it'll just be the next clip. But I will have been gone several hours, several hours. Look at that. Beautiful. I know that this cake is going to taste as good as it looks. I know it is. I could smell the cinnamon and yeah. So you know what time it is. Taste test time. All righty. I have let this cake completely cool because it is several hours later. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, let's see. I hope that you can see the streusel that we added. Because remember, we did streusel, batter, streusel, and batter again. So let's see if we were successful. I say we as if you helped me bake the cake, but you know what I mean. Let's see if I was successful. Come on out. Da-da-da-da. I see a little. I see a little. Not as much as I thought I would see. Probably when I cut into the cake a little more. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to cut another slice just so that you can see the streusel that I was successful. And one thing this recipe said, do not overmix. So I hope that I didn't overmix the batter, making the cake tough. Oh, yeah. You can definitely see it there. Successful. Yes, yes. Now I'm not going to eat both of these. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That looks delicious. All right. Here we go. Here we go. I can definitely taste the cinnamon. Cinnamon is becoming one of my favorite flavors. And I want to do cinnamon rolls, but I'm like, okay, Dion, you have done enough cinnamon. Let's choose another flavor. So let's taste this and see. Mmm. That's good. Good and moist. I can taste the pecans, the cinnamon. This is a good recipe. This is a good recipe. Yes, it is. And let me show you up close. Well, I guess let me show you the whole cake instead of the little slice. So you can see the streusel. That's good. You see the streusel in the middle? And this would be excellent with a cup of coffee. Now, I did a little research. The reason that they call this coffee cake is because people normally have this particular cake with coffee. So this is something that you would eat for breakfast because it's definitely not too sweet, but this would be delicious with a hot cup of coffee. Or my husband does not like coffee, even with a hot cup of cocoa. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me here in my kitchen as we baked this cinnamon cream, sour cream, streusel, cinnamon swirl cake. I told you it was a long name. The name of the cake is in the description. Thank you so much for joining me again in my kitchen. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. If you don't do those things, how am I going to know you want me to continue to do this? Join me next week in my kitchen where there's no telling what I might bake. Thank you guys so much. Be blessed. Bye.